if you can hear me.
And we are now live on YouTube.
Excellent.
Thank you all for coming. This is a lightning talk by Jacqui Taylor. She will talk to us about the future of critical national infrastructure. And please feel free to ask your questions in the chat or the Q&A window or in the chat window on YouTube. I will be monitoring them and I will be alerting our speaker.
Thank you for that, Dida, for doing the YouTube ones. I haven't got that in there, so thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Jacqui Taylor. I'm CEO and co-founder of Flying Binary. We're a company that's focused on inclusion, and we change the world to leverage the industrial Internet of Things with deep tech. That's the last time I'm going to say industrial Internet of Things because it takes too long in a lightning talk, so IIoT. I'm the world's first smart city czar and one of 2019's 100 global leaders, and I work as a science diplomat in the UK's Foreign and Commonwealth Office. And this piece of work that I'll share with you today is how those awards came to be. We formed Flying Binary in 2009 to actually deliver regulatory change across the European banking service. And that was the first RegTech cloud service in banking. And today we have 25 interoperable full stack deep tech cloud services. They're all assured and accredited by Her Majesty's government. I'm an independent industry analyst and advise 27,000 CXOs across the world on how they can leverage IIoT. I'm also an expert advisor to the G20 Digital Economy Task Force and the United Nations, who are looking at unlocking the opportunity for growth using IIoT technologies. And this gives me a unique perspective, and I want to pass some of that knowledge on to you today. First off, I want to just ask you to pop in the chat to get you all ready to chat. Where you're listening from today, the official answer is outside of London. So where are you here today? I'm not sure I can see those things. I'll be monitoring that. Oh, good afternoon, Celine. I can see that. So I wanted to first give you an overview of the company and the work that sets out the context for our CNI work. Now, Dida was very kind to say CNI, critical national infrastructure. And I think that that may not be a term that you know about. Again, pop me a yes in the, oh, US, cool. Pop me a yes in the chat box if you've heard of CNI before, and pop me a double yes if it's something that you're connected with. So you can read a little bit more about us, some of the things I've said already, but we're also international web scientists who co-founded the data journalism industry. If you hadn't heard of web science, don't worry, we made it up, or at least we didn't, so Tim Berners-Lee did. And so everything that I show you today is around the web science research that we run from our web observatory, and 34 million citizens across the world inform that research. Now, IIoT is an engineering challenge. That's okay, because I'm an aerospace engineer, my co-founder's an electrical engineer. But the difference with this technology change is it has a societal impact, which is hence our inclusion focus. And since we formed in 2009, we've been focused on building a technology that unlocks the talents of Generation Z. Gen Z are 27 to 17 today, and our work for them is done. As part of the G20 work, I evidence that they influence 40% of the economic power across the world. They're set and ready to rumble. And in my Davos speech in 2019 on the future of the cybersecurity industry, that was the launch for the next agenda. It was a very short talk. I said there wasn't a future for the industry, and that was a considered heretical statement in January 2019. But I think COVID has made us realize that as an industry, we're not well positioned, but those outside of our industry know that too. And I used that Davos speech to signal the key change for us as a company. So we build for Gen Alpha, they're 16 to 6 today, although James will remind me that he's 4. And they have very different requirements, and they use the technology in IIoT. We're very proud of the GovTech 100 recognition as one of 100 companies who've unlocked the change for the UK, but that's for the 25, not one, interoperable cloud services. And I'm one of the original G Cloud Zero team that changed the procurement for all cloud service providers across the world, as is Tony, who you've met and is no doubt listening at some point. There he is. Hi, Tony. Name check there. And all of our services that I talked to you about today are secured and accredited and interoperable, but with a difference. They operate a new trust model which is where the inclusion agenda comes in, and they have no reliance on the US EU Privacy Shield. So I've mentioned it a couple of times already, deep tech. The term comes from Jacqui. He is co-founder and CEO of an investment organization called Propel. And deep tech, or deep technology startup companies like ourselves, are based on substantial scientific advances, in our case, the web science that we've invented, and the high-tech engineering innovation that comes from our joint background. The thing that stands them apart as companies is they require lengthy R&D. They require a long time to reach commercial applications and large investments for commercial success. But the key thing about us as companies, our IP for deep tech is well protected, hard to reproduce, and gives us a strong barrier to competitors. And which is not true of the digital technology piece that came before IIoT. But Flying Binaries are the exceptions on both those counts. We've never taken investment in 11 years since we founded, and we were profitable in the month one. 2009 to 2018, skipping a whole load of work, but the reality of it is there was a series of incidents related to security issues and privacy breaches around the critical national infrastructure, but it was related specifically to specific parts of our CNI around cities. The world was questioning innovation in cities for many reasons. And I ended up writing a series of articles being featured on various things. And that's where I was recognized as the world's first smart city czar, because I said from a security point of view and a privacy point of view that actually leveraging the CNI was the way forward. And that whole piece of work in 2019, when the whole thing opened up as a debate, caused a reboot of the smart city agenda across the world and a recognition that CNI was forever impacted by smart cities. And in essence, the debate around that was, Tony, I've just seen your note, Bedford, love it. The debate around that was, smart cities weren't smart, so what on earth was this all about? And it was something that at the time was recognized our legal systems weren't going to address. It wasn't something we could regulate our way out of. And in fact, my offering was, well, I think we need to write some standards because we need to create consensus. CNI is pervasive. And in fact, that was accepted as a way forward. And every country is focused on infrastructure bills from 2018. That's still true today, although many countries are looking at other angles. But their corresponding CNI plans fitted directly with this change for smart cities. And in fact, we published the final 2 standards on that this year to detail that consensus. So that leads you to creating the plan for the G20 digital economies and the task force that said we had a digital tech revolution, we're moving into IIoT, what do we need now? And essentially the plan I created was a growth agenda, articulated that transition, but the core of it being the deep tech, such as we build, such as other companies like us build. And essentially the key thing to reset the economy's digital economy plans was, this is not a public or a private initiative, it's a blended approach. And CNI was an area focused in that assessment in the G20 plan, because actually it turned out the UK was the only place in the world that had recognised the CNI importance of it. And the National Cybersecurity Centre, they take the lead on this in the UK, obviously in partnership with the Centre for Protection of Critical National Infrastructure, or Centre for Protection of National Infrastructure. And so part of the G20 plan that was delivered in February this year was to address the CNI gap for other G20 members. So I wanted to let you know, coming to a domain like yours anytime now. But the key thing that I want to get across from a CNI point of view is, in the IoT, the future hubs of business are smart cities. 55% of our world's population live there today. We expect that to rise to 68% by 2050. But what on earth are they? Ask any smart city expert, they'll give you a different answer. So here's mine. They're urban, they're rural, they're coastal, but they're a place where technology enables better health and well-being outcomes for all citizens, including visitors to the city and including the communities within the city. They deliver on an inclusion agenda. And what that means for us as a company at Flying Binaries is we leave no one behind. What else are they? They're complex, they're messy, but they've got one single thing in common. Every single city on the planet is different, even in China, where I've been a strategic advisor for almost 2 years. So building CNI services as suppliers, when you're delivering IIoT, when you're delivering smart city deployments, you have to be able to understand the business models and the new commercial models that these new CNI services need. And one way that we've done that is buckle down, get the NCSC Cyber Essentials scheme, because that's the bedrock of everything we're doing. This is part of what we call under the CNI banner, security-minded approaches to CNI services. And this expertise we have has helped buyers of our services manage risks around the deployment more effectively. It's a huge subject, this, but in a public sector context, this would involve with working with the CIRO, Senior Information Risk Officer, and private sector working with CISO, which I don't need to explain to you. But in Smart City CNI, it's actually a blended team, and it's a multimodal agency issue, so likely to be pulled into it, whatever you're doing at some point. So what do we need to do about it? Well, there's a whole load of things we need to do about it. There's three key things I wanted to pass on from a knowledge transfer point of view. We need a new trust model for CNI services in the smart cities. They are a distributed architecture, and they create distributed technology offerings as well. So we've used the security-minded approach recommended by CNI, and we've leveraged all our security accreditations and certifications from the 11 G-Cloud frameworks we do. But from a deep tech point of view, one thing I need to make really clear today, no cloud means no AI. So smart cities need a cloud-first strategy, and so therefore so does CNI. I'd recommend that part of planning and deployments that you use the standards that have been done, not just the ones that I've helped create, but it's a safeguarding piece around security mindedness, about privacy preserving, obviously related particularly to personal data, personal identifiable information. And I've just received recognition from the UK ICO as one of the 6 data protection practitioners of excellence, still learning to say that, for this work, because of the complex, messy nature of how you do this, and it can't just be security minded. And so it's really recommending that the appropriate levels of security are in the design of all the devices, in the applications, the interoperable services. It's an ecosystem, essentially. So the other thing we need to think about is the fact that core and endpoint IIoT services are heavily dependent on interoperable cyber physical devices. There's no way of, be my guest, to secure IIoT. There's no way of doing it like that. The transition to this type of a CNI approach brings a level of autonomy with minimal human interaction and reliance on that distributed architecture. The city is the curator, they're not the owner. And therefore the CNI owners and the city owners are not the same. And so essentially we have 13 sectors of CNI in the UK. Smart cities isn't the 14th, because mostly what they have is third-party service provision. But it's critical that there's oversight, which isn't just security-minded, but is privacy preserving. And there's a friction and a tension around that. And we have in Europe legislation and regulation that mandates this. But increasingly, the thing that's not being taken into account is citizens are actually gaining oversight into these services and demanding a change. And that brings a whole new dynamic. Physical security, well, that's a key part of CNI services anyway, and for IoT, obviously it is. But the thing to remember is it's offline and online provision, which is the reality that will pervade. So for example, over 80 million people in Europe alone have accessibility needs, which city services have to deliver out of the 95,000 cities in Europe. And increasingly an online presence, but an offline one as well. And complexity means that from a physical security point of view, it's multi-layered. And traditionally, this has been evolved as single asset management. However, that won't work for future CNI. It'll have to be portfolio asset management, resilience of physical security systems. The CNI arrangements will need to specifically consider dependency on essential services from a CNI point of view, such as power. One of the standards I wrote was power, and I'll mention that later. But essentially, I thought I would show you something, because it's all generic stuff, and that's great, Jacqui, but what about me? And visualization is one of the core things that we do along our website, our web science, and it's also a key factor in the success of the smart city CNI innovation we've done, because we deploy advisory AI self-service models, because our service users for CNI are not data scientists, they're not computer scientists, they're policy and city officials. And this actually is a screenshot from our artificial emotional intelligence tech, which uses this new trust model I mentioned before. And that doesn't care what it consumes. It takes text, it takes images, it takes video streams. It does it for organizations, cities, or nations, trains on over 2 billion data points every day. And for the commercial model, interprets 20 out of the 27 human emotions. And in this case, this is a CNI that's of interest, where it's analysed hundreds of hours of video, and we've effectively just screenshotted that. It's tagged the video frame that it was asked to do for the key area of interest that it was reviewing. And expert humans then review those highlights. And so knowledge is built around events or circumstances in a city, a nation, around a CNI that people need to see. So let the machine do the heavy lift and shift. As part of the G20 assessment, we asked 2 million millennials. We don't usually talk to millennials, but we did for this one, and Gen Z, their view of IoT with a series of questions. Now, this is a really short talk, and I'm talking really fast, but essentially, out of a series of questions, I've concatenated it for this slide, which was, do you think robots improve your lives or replace jobs? Really, really positive point of view from our future workforce. And essentially 40,000 of Gen Z who responded, over 50% of those were actually in cities. So we did some further work and actually talked to them about one of the CNI changes that have been made all over the infrastructure, all over the world around autonomous vehicles. Not such a positive response on that. And the point I made at the G20 was we're deploying this technology alongside CNI to set public policy. But quite frankly, our future workforce is not in the least bit interested. And I followed it up to look at the UK instance because I wanted to know why. And effectively, 19% of Gen Z in the UK don't have a driving license and no intention to get one either. And for their point of view, they want multimodal transport, make it work, make it connect, just make it available. So part of the failure of the global CNI approaches has been we're not taking into account that voice of citizens who Gen Z are already influencing 40% of the spend. So there's loads of things to consider, but one of the things I wanted to make clear in this talk was a threat-based approach to this just won't work. And the uptick in criminal activity in this lockdown has really reminded us all an online first society means that we just can't do it that way anymore. And I would say the transition to risk-based strategies are only just beginning, and there are many barriers to deployment, such as the ones I'm suggesting. But it's allowed me to develop a series of key risks around CNI for IoT, and that should be the goal for any organisation that's interfacing with, leveraging, connecting with CNI. So what now? I'm now off to do the UN's 2050 plan around their 17 Sustainable Development Goals and to deliver this to the 141 nations. I've had help from places you wouldn't expect in order to do that, but essentially it's led to the creation of new financial instruments. We're launching an 11 billion investment fund for CNI for that innovation, and the global fund at the moment accounts for about 1.6 trillion. So is this the future? Yes. Does it connect to our security domain? Very definitely. And then my final one, 4 IoT leaders were asked to write a report to reset the European Commission on its new approach for the new Commission cycle. And we've effectively launched a draft report with the Commission team in December in an open meeting, and we're finalising that now. It will go to its final editorial in the next couple of weeks. And essentially, it will underpin the Horizon Europe plan to change the health and well-being for our cities and communities across Europe. 85% of our cities are small giants where fragmented CNI is a real risk, and they all have different priorities. So I've submitted an addendum to the European ICT rolling plan, if anybody is familiar with that. And smart cities are delivering that future CNI via IIoT to 500 million citizens in the next 5 years. Not everybody will get that. But that's it from me. It's messy, it's complex, but the future of every digital economy is a completely new approach to CNI. and so far 141 countries are on board. And so that's all from me. I didn't see any things come in my chat, Cedar. I don't know whether you have any other.
There are no questions from the audience, but I do have one for myself. What do you think about the regulation, and would it work for IoT?
No, it won't work. And in fact, that's not, and nobody's proposing to pick that up. Standardization can actually, depending whether it's, you know, at whatever level, it comes in many levels, is the genuine approach, because it'll need to travel faster than regulation, and it'll need to be more flexible than regulation. And it's very difficult to organize that at a global level. But certainly across Europe, it's not regulation, it's standards that's the way forward.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously open standards, because of course that's what we would all want as well.
Yeah, there are lots to talk about on this, but this was a lightning talk, so it's more to create more questions rather than give us the answers. So how can people reach you to, I guess they're on the screen, aren't they? Your email address, Twitter, and your website.
Yeah, and do reach out. I post on most of my channels, I post the updates to this, particularly the UN stuff will be coming up and launching after the summer. So, and all the other things I'm doing in Europe. So anybody who wants to know more and see the agenda as it evolves, then catch up with me online.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant
Jacqui.
to be here. You're welcome.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Tony, for organizing.
Okay, that's cool. And that's me.
Thank you so
I can
much.
screen back there.
It was great.